entire peninsula of Florida to one degree or the other.
It hasn't even come and you want it to be over.
Let's have a look at our big picture here and the 3 areas that we are watching in the tropics. For the first time in 7 years, we have 3 active hurricanes. Katia, Irma, and then Jose. And by the way, Jim brought it to my attention this morning because I wasn't even, paying too close of attention to Jose. Jose could loop around and affect us in the lower, I'm not kidding, into Florida. That is the forecast right now. So we have to keep a very close eye on Jose. This is a beast, however. Look at that. I mean, just tremendous winds associated with this. It's moving north here of the Dominican Republic and also Haiti. But where does it go from there? It does look like Florida is going to feel some of the strongest effects from this. And at this point, I'm just hoping that that eye wall can just stay offshore. I mean, just keep it offshore, please.
It's so big, though. Even if we're 20 miles offshore, what I'm worried about is even places in South Florida taking the western eye wall.
Yeah.
So
well, that's what I'm saying. I want that.
Right,
if I can just keep that eye wall
Trust
off.
me, we all would love to blow this off to the east. People are taking this seriously. The center, being very blunt about it, is the potential to landfall in South Florida. We want you to know that. It's an extremely dangerous and potentially catastrophic hurricane. Irma already cut a dangerous path in the Caribbean, Steph, as you know. This is the damage left behind in St. Martin after this Category 5 plowed through the island. The French government says the 4 most solid buildings on the Caribbean island have been destroyed. The 4 most solid buildings on the island have been destroyed. That's huge, a statement right there. It also ripped through Princess Juliana International Airport. That's the airport where planes fly over beachgoers. And you see all those videos of people that go on vacation there. So just a horrible situation here. Look at that.
So imagine that all the way up the east coast of Florida, or a big chunk of it.
Yeah, I mean, think about that.
Let's have a look.
Talking about a strong Cat 4 here by the time it gets to Florida.
Yeah, I mean, it still could be a Cat 3 up in northern Florida.
Yep.
This is a very serious situation. Nobody is hyping this. This is legit, but we all need to, do everything orderly and calm if we can. Okay, so Hurricane Irma, winds 180 miles an hour. Category 5 still here. Our pressure is at 921. The only saving grace with this is that it is moving quickly at 17 miles an hour. Yesterday it's 16 miles an hour. Today it's 17 miles an hour. So it is moving fast, and that is good because it's not just going to sit there and, pump on us here. So hurricane record. This has set so many records. This one, 180 mile plus winds. We've had it for 42 consecutive hours. Look at the old record was Allen of 18 hours. So we just blew that out of the water. So right now, tropical storm force winds across here over 350 miles. Our hurricane force winds across here are 100 miles. Of course, you have to take out the eye. That's about 30 miles. So let's say it's about 70 miles across. They extend out 50 miles from the center. That's probably a better way to articulate. If you go to the center of the storm, hurricane force winds extend out 50 miles from the center. So there's all sorts of warnings here and watches. Let's take you hour by hour. Good news here for the Dominican Republic and Haiti. That eye wall is staying to the north. Terrible news, however, for the Turks and Caicos and also as we go into the southern Bahamas. We will be watching this. Wave heights, look at it. We had to actually add a new color to our wave heights because they're going to be 30, 40 feet at times here. The Turks and Caicos, we're going to be getting it. I mean, there are times we're going to be in that eye wall for hours here, heading on into the Bahamas, and then, of course, eventually making its way towards Florida. Where does it make that turn? When does it make that turn? We're going to continue to watch that. But, Jen, people, thankfully, are prepared in Florida.
Yeah, I think folks are seeing the pictures of what happened, and, yes, they are racing to complete preparations for Irma. Now, that means boarding up homes and businesses and stocking up on food and water and other essentials. People streaming out of South Florida, finding themselves at a standstill on I-75 on Wednesday, and the rush to evacuate setting off panic buying for gas, leaving many pumps across Florida dry. All right, Jim, let's talk about what could be the impacts for Florida, right? Track is going to matter, but it's a large system. I just saw from the Weather Service in Wilmington, the state of Ohio couldn't even contain Wilma. When you look, Irma, when you look at the size.
Right. It's huge, and that's why I want, I'm not afraid to say it this morning. I want Florida to prepare for a landfalling major hurricane. I want, especially South Florida, prepare for a landfalling major hurricane in through here. If it scoots to the east, great. I hope I'm so wrong. I really do. But I want you to prepare for that because that's what we're dealing with in through here, all right? If you're asked to evacuate, evacuate. The best thing you can read in your local area as to what to do and all the information is the National Weather Service local hurricane statements. I cannot be more specific about that. All right, so this is coming off to the west, and look at it, still a Cat 5. Even into the early morning hours of Saturday, possibly. It does weaken a little bit, potentially, as it makes the turn. Again, remember, we're not great at intensity forecasts. All right, so it could stay up. It's not impossible in through here because, especially if it stays away from the Dominican, which it will, and probably Cuba, you're not going to have that land interaction. As a matter of fact, some very, very warm water happens in through here. You remember the Labor Day hurricane of 1935? It exploded down through here. Katrina exploded. Andrew exploded in this area because it's so warm. And even after we are done with South Florida, like Steph said, does this thing just scoot right up the eastern side and hammer all these areas all the way into I-75? And then don't be surprised if the upper low that hangs back across Mississippi pulls what's left of this well inland. So once we get by the South Carolina, Georgia, and North Carolina coast, there's a very good chance that some of these areas, again, could see wind damage. And this may be expanded a little bit, too, depending on, of course, final track. But Atlanta, I think you could have some very gusty winds out of Columbia, South Carolina, Augusta, even, heck, as far west as Greenville, possibly, and up towards Charlotte and Raleigh, potentially in time. Again, this is a huge wind machine. You've got very, very wide-stretching winds. So you take that and you extrapolate it onto the northeast, regardless of 50 miles here or there, east or west, Steph, and we've got a lot of wind damage potential.
That we do. Power outages, I mean, it could be weeks, if not months, before people get power out, and I'm not, exaggerating. South Florida caught in the crosshairs of Hurricane Irma, mandatory evacuations for the Florida Keys and all mobile homes in coastal areas within Miami-Dade County Zone A and part of Zone B. Also, Mercy Hospital in Miami has begun evacuating patients as well and will not be admitting any new patients. By the way, Miami-Dade, I looked it up here just for a quick here. Zone A, Barrier Islands. We're talking Bal Harbor, Bay Harbor, Golden Beach, Indian Creek, Miami Beach, North Bay Village, Sunny Island, Surfside. Also, Jen, when we're talking about Broward County, it's east of Federal. In those low-lying areas.
And I tweeted out the specific links where if you don't know what zone you're in, you can put your address in and it will show you a map of where exactly you fit into these evacuation zones. Let's talk about the timing. All right. So, today we know the impacts are going to be felt in the Turks and Caicos by the end of the day. And then when we get beyond that, the point of the track is certainly going to matter. We know it's a large system and there will be tropical storm force winds felt over a large area. The worst of the winds is within a 50-mile radius. And so that is going to matter significantly as to who gets the devastating damage. So let's take a look at the timing. In terms of today, by this evening, we're watching at the weather going downhill big time across the Turks and Caicos and then southern Bahamas. And then through the weekend, Saturday into Sunday, we take it into South Florida. Let's focus in on Nassau. Here, track will really matter in terms of significant winds up over 75 or even greater winds than that. If it tracks just more to the east compared to the current track that it's on, it could bring worse conditions to Nassau. All right, so rainfall, though, regardless, will be a big deal. 12 to 18 inches. Again, this is a big system. By this point, also going to be bringing a lot of surge with it as well, and that will be a concern for us here into the northern Bahamas. And again, the timing for you is Friday night into Saturday. Let's talk about that rainfall, because I mentioned the Bahamas getting big rain. There's going to be on the order of 1 foot to 2 feet of rain. Now, as we saw Irma come through the Caribbean, it was surge, it was wind, that was the big deal here. But now as we get into, I think, the Bahamas and South Florida and then actually up, rain is going to be a concern as well. In the Florida Keys, by Saturday morning, winds will pick up over tropical storm force. By Sunday morning, the risk for hurricane force winds. Rainfall here will be 8 to 12 inches. Jim.
All right, let's check on some of the headlines from Irma. Here's what we know right now. Authorities linking at least 8 deaths to the Caribbean, or from Irma in the Caribbean. Damage described and actually seen. We've seen the pictures. It's catastrophic. Parts of the U.S. and British Virgin Islands also experiencing some catastrophic damage there. The National Hurricane Center will be issuing watches for parts of Florida later on this morning. They've stated that. And mandatory evacs begin today in parts of Miami-Dade County in zones A and B. And Steph, I think you're going to show that at some point if you haven't already.
And also Broward County. I was looking at them in detail. Broward County, you're basically Federal Highway eastbound. So
it's west of A1A here in some places.
I mean, yeah, it's Federal Highway is US 1, and then everywhere east in those low-lying areas. All right, so we have very little time here. By the way, it's not only Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. Pay attention. You have got to have your guard on as well. So watch out for the freaking forecast for us here. Our key takeaways: hurricane watches will likely go up for the Keys and portions of South Florida today. It's about having a plan and a backup plan. We're back after this break.
We used to resort to some pretty creative